have been.
Are we good? Are we echoing? Feel an echo coming. We'll call the
Uh-oh. Echo.
echo.
Sean, can you get that?
Is yours on? Joe, you're sure?
I think so.
I saw his call. I was in meetings up until now.
I can hear
Tonight.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
Me.
That's
It was
it.
me, sorry.
All right, I will call the Monday, October 6, 2025, Select Board meeting to order. Bill Wilson arrived just in time.
I am.
And we do not have, I don't think Tom is joining us yet. If he does, he'll be remote, and we'll do a roll call at that point. All right, we'll first discuss board and committee openings. Affordable Housing Trust has 1 opening. Conservation Commission has 2 openings. Community for Preservation Committee has 1 opening for a member of Historic District Commission. The Finance Advisory Committee has 2 openings. The Historic District Commission has 2 openings for 3-year terms, 2 openings for 2-year terms. 1 must be a resident of the Historic District and 1 must be a resident realtor. And lastly, the HRC, the Human Rights Commission, has 2 at-large openings. We will now open up for public comment for a maximum of 30 minutes. No speaker will be allowed to speak for more than 3 minutes. If you want to speak, please come up to the podium and introduce your name and your address. No one's in the room here, Joe, so you can look online.
Nobody's online.
Okay. All right. Moving swiftly through. We don't have on here, we usually have reports, but I don't see it on here.
Yeah,
So we'll come back to that. So the first thing we want to do is close the warrant for December 9th, 2025, special town meeting. We have 4 items we have identified that we had 1 and now we have 4. If we keep it open longer, we might have a dozen, but we have 4 items on the, 1 obviously is the reason for the meeting, the Browns Hill Overlay District zoning. Number 2 is we're taking the opportunity to take care of some small bills, I'm assuming.
it's one bill from Cape Cod.
1 bill. We have also found that in negotiations to monetize our cell phone tower, we need to have some flexibility on extending our lease to 30-year terms. So even though we're not talking about whether we're going to do it, to sell it or not, we want to at least have the option to do it. So we're going to talk about, and we don't have that language yet, Joe?
No.
Okay. And then the last one was a CP, Community Preservation Fund, for a potential town hall request. There's no current, but we asked Joe and Tim to put together a contingency plan to make sure we have no hiccups in finishing town hall this spring. So they've have a placeholder into this CPC for funding for that.
I believe Tim goes before the CPC this week.
It does. We have a meeting on Thursday, so Tim's gonna come to it. Well, we'll go through that. It's a $250,000.
Ask.
Yep.
So Joe, what else do we need to do in terms of discussion points before we vote to make a motion, vote to close it? Nothing. All right, you're good. So the language shall come later.
Unless you want to take something off and discuss.
No, but the language shall come later, so the town understands that we're not voting on the language, we're just voting on the topic.
Yeah, vote on the topics, so
Yes.
Can I ask
the town council will draft the language for the warrants.
Okay, and then if we did need to temporarily reopen it to adjust anything,
You can do that at one meeting,
do
we've
that.
done it in the past.
what's the last possible date for that? if we
Responsible
had to?
moment, I think we said a month.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I
We
wasn't
said a
sure.
month, I think we said a month before, but.
1 month
Yeah,
before.
we would definitely need to make sure everything is
By the end of
ready to
the
go
month,
by
probably.
the end of
Okay.
October.
So basically in 2 weeks though?
Yeah.
Yeah,
One more meeting, yeah.
1 more meeting, so if we have to make any adjustments, we've got 2 weeks to do it.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Okay, have a motion to close the warrant for December 9th, 2025.
I move that we close the warrant for December 9th, 2025, with the following 4 topics as listed.
Second.
Have a second. Do any further questions, comments?
Yeah, just what's the contingency if we cannot come to an agreement regarding the proposed overlay district and the development agreement, what would we do in that case? Would we just cancel the special town meeting, or?
Your two options, you could cancel the whole town meeting, or you could open the warrant and remove the Browns Hill overlay district from the warrant and go forward with the other 3 items, so it'd be up to you. I think definitely 2 of those could probably wait easily till the annual town meeting, and then, well, I don't want to speak for the Community Preservation Committee, but those are the other 2 could easily wait till the annual town meeting if needed.
And, okay, and when would we need to do that by? In terms of if we needed to reopen the warrant to remove the Browns Hill overlay and
By the first meeting in November, because by the second meeting, we'll be printing warrants and, you know, posting them and everything else, so.
Okay, so we could potentially still hold it for the items that are
Yeah.
on, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? And we do not have Tom.
Yep.
So we are 4-0. We're going to take one item out of order, actually a few items out of order, just because of the people in the room. We're going to respect their time as well as ours, but we have Bill Bowler. Thank you for coming today. So we have on the end of the agenda, we had set date for April, that's when you want to move up? Set the date for the April 26th annual town meeting.
April, yeah, the date would actually be, I think, April 4th, under the way the town bylaw is set up. That's Saturday, the first Saturday in April. I think it's April 4th. That is Holy Saturday this year.
Okay.
And so it was raised that the towns may want to consider moving that out. We discussed it at the 5 chairs meeting with the school district and the town of Wenham representatives that were there. The chair, Mr. Timon from the Wenham Select Board, said that he thought, you know, you guys take a vote and then they'd respond, but he didn't see why a week later would be a big deal.
Okay.
But part of the reason that both towns have to do it is because it affects the town elections as well. Because under our bylaw, the election has to happen the Thursday following the ATM, so it would move everything. So,
Okay. So, Bill? Bill Bowler?
Well, I certainly have no objection. It probably would make sense to move it. You get better attendance, and anything that increases attendance is a good thing.
Okay. Joe, everything else works for that date?
yeah, well, we haven't done the calendar yet because we back into the date, we back into the calendar from what the date is. So I was preparing to do a calendar based on April 4th when the issue was raised by the town clerk, so I held off.
So are we voting tonight, or are we just discussing it tonight? Do we have to
think-
vote on anything?
I think if you voted your preference for a date, we could send that message to Wenham and see if they comply. And then if they have if something comes up and they want to discuss it more, we can always.
So
go back and
has
put-
there been any
School
informal
vacation.
discussions with one
Is,
yet on this?
just one quick question, school vacation,
Is the week after the 11th, so.
the 13th through the 17th?
No, no.
No, the one after, the
One after,
20th through the
after,
24th?
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I was trying to pull up my
Oh, calendar,
meeting
yeah.
packet. When is the date? When are we?
We're
planning?
going to move it 1 week from the 4th to the 11th.
Yeah, so
Okay.
at the back of your, actually, I should have just pointed out that the back of the packet, there is calendar.
Patriots Day is what day?
Right, no, I was trying to pull it up, so that's why. I was-
Calendar here, yeah, so it's normally, it would have been the 4th under bylaw. We're asking you to look at the following week, the 11th.
When is Patriots Day?
Don't know. It's a Monday though, so I don't really.
I don't know, I just want to know if it's like the 13th, or is it the 20th?
I don't know, you're running the marathon?
No,
You're
but that's a
final?
week,
We'll come cheer you on.
that's a weekend a lot of people might go away because it's a 3-day weekend, so I just don't want to also
Okay,
put it on a weekend that people might be
Yeah, that's good.
out of town, if we're trying to get people to come.
yeah, that makes sense.
Let me just look real quick.
April 20th.
April
All right,
20th,
that
so
works good.
it-
All right.
which it makes sense because it's usually the Monday at the start of the school vacation.
Okay,
so.
all right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I'll entertain a motion to.
Could I just
sorry,
clarify, this is just for the, just so everybody's clear, this is moving town meeting date. Would it move the election date
Yeah, correct.
a week as
Yes.
well? Okay. Okay, just
And what would the election date be again?
Be that Thursday, so it'd be
Following
the
Thursday,
Following Thursday?
12th, 13th,
16th.
Put it in my calendar right now.
16th?
Yeah.
I know.
Your taxes are due on the 15th,
The 15th, right.
every year.
I'll have 10 days. Then my last day.
Oh,
All right.
It'll be the 13th.
So I'll accept a motion to
April.
set our
I move
April
that we set our
26th, yeah. go
Annual
ahead.
town meeting for April 4th, 2026.
No, April
No,
11th.
April
sorry.
11th.
From
Oh,
April
shit.
4th.
From April 4th to April 11th.
Second,
And, you know, we might as well just say motion and move our election.
And move the election accordingly to the following Thursday, April 16th.
second.
Is that good, Joe?
Yep.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. We'll return to our regularly scheduled program. No, actually, no, we're not. We're gonna actually put Gordon Conwell in front of the, no, Joe, we will get to the town manager goals, 2026, 2025.
Not that worried about it.
But we're gonna, first, we're gonna talk about an important topic, obviously, is the status of the Gordon Conwell Development Agreement that we've worked hard on. So I'll give a brief summary of where I think we're at. I'm gonna let Rosie also give a brief summary where we're at. We can either discuss to the board or let Merwin come up and give his sort of summary from where they're at on their side, and we can talk about where our open items are. And what happened is, I think, is that we have two issues, 2.5. I don't think the last one is a big deal, it's more of a date issue, but we have two issues that we're not quite on the same page as a seminary. We think everything else, I think, is in a good state. So instead of Rosie and I making a determination, we thought it made sense to bring it to the board and have a public meeting and discuss it with the rest of the board to make a decision that made sense.
And our legal counsel also advised that at this point in time, kind of come out into an open meeting forum. Is that
It
correct?
can't, yes.
Yeah.
It can't go, it can't be behind closed doors. so it
At
has
this
to-
point in
it
time,
has to
now
be-
it's,
Yeah, it has to be public.
so that was their advice as well,
Yeah.
was to kind of bring it here. But correct me if I'm wrong, from up until this point in time, we've had a couple of members from the planning board, Bill Olson, yourself, and Rosemary Kennedy, running the negotiations on behalf of the,
As long as there wasn't a quorum of any board, you didn't have to do it public. This
Right.
isn't like negotiating through a legal issue or through contract, collective bargaining. So it would have had to be public if the whole board was involved.
Yeah.
Now that we're involved in
and
the whole
now
board.
we're making it public. That's kind of the first one, right?
Yeah, so
I just thought it was good to kind of bring everybody up to speed on the roadmap, where we've been, where we are now, and this is our first time in the public with the, which was in the packet.
So, Joe, we issued a draft 2 weeks ago on,
Yeah, we went over.
so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to check
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah,
So,
the version that came over, we got it from John Witten based on Rosie and Bill's feedback last week. It was issued to you, and then it was shared with Merwin and the seminary, and it was also shared with the abutters because they've been very interested parties right along. So, but we didn't get it till last night, so.
be more than happy if we're gonna allow 10 minutes of public comment on this at the end if people have questions, but I'd be more than happy to talk about anything on the agreement with anybody here. I'm just gonna focus on the items that don't have finality yet.
Sure.
And then we can come back to anything else we want to talk about. So there are 3 items. So once again, like I said, I'm gonna talk, give my opinion, I'll let Rosie go, and then we can either talk as a board or let Merwin speak before we have a debate. The first item is access to the property, public access to the property. And so, as long as the seminary has been there, people remember it, they've never sort of said no trespass. They've let it open to the public, so public's had access to that property for, as long as they've been there, right? They've never sort of, so, as a town, we're interested in maintaining public access to the property. And we've tried to write that into the agreement. The challenge that we've had with that is that there are no trails. I have a trail on my property. A lot of people have trails on their property. There's easements and there's definitions of how to define public access. There are no trails, there is no easement right now, and there is no proposed easement. So it becomes a very blanket statement of it's open, the entire property is open to everybody, which is hard. There's insurance, there's risks, there's what happens 20, 30 years from now, right? So we had sort of threw some language in there that said, we have access to the property town until upon showing of good cause, to sort of give us protection, but also give the seminary some flexibility in the future. There's some debate on that language really, what that creates in terms of legal problems down the road. So we'll hear the debate on sort of, I think we're good with adding it. I think the seminary thinks it doesn't help protect them, and it maybe creates future issues, right? So we're gonna talk about sort of how we can, as Merwin says, they have no intention of limiting public access to the property now, but they don't know, they can't foresee in the future, 20 or 30 years from now, about what would happen to the property, or what risks, or what security issues they might have, or things like that. So they want to have some flexibility to sort of protect their asset. So we can talk about through that one. And then the second item was the heritage landscape. So we all were given a map, that Joe maybe can pull up, that defined what we've eloquently called the heritage landscape of the area on site that we find as sort of sacred landscape in terms of the history of the property, the history of the buildings on the property, the access to the highest point in Essex, the highest point in Essex County. So, so we define this as a heritage landscape, which is the light. You can zoom out, Joe, maybe give one.
Scroll down, you should be able to see
Yeah.
it. Or well, it's that green HL right there.
Yeah, just to orient ourselves, though.
I'm trying to,
Kind of that.
it's the light green here.
So yeah, obviously, the brown is the top of the hill. Oh,
Sorry about that, I'm trying to get it so that it's sharing. I don't know why it's not. Give me a second, please.
I see what you're trying to show, yeah. There's your,
Where is mine? There it is. There we go. It should be up there now.
Okay. Sure.
The brown upper campus, UC upper campus, the current dormitories, which we consider lower campus, is in the purple. Bridge Street is on the right-hand side. The lots that develop the housing in is sort of in that little missing notch on the upper side. So the HL borders are sort of the neighbors on the east side, on the west side. But so that 14.77 acres, the intention is that if that property ever gets sold, it would still have a conservation commission, a conservation restriction over that property and not be able to be developed. While the seminary owns it, they have Dover rights. They can do whatever they need to do in terms of what their school would need in terms of educational, structures or development, right? But if it ever got sold, as part of the middle campus, it would have a it's what we're asking for, conservation restriction. So the debate on that is that the planning board has developed a overlay bylaw, and we've developed the development agreement, which should be sort of work in concert, and sort of the idea was that really the development of the property should be part of the whatever is agreed to as part of the planning board, and not necessarily needs to be in the development agreements. We need to understand what's in there, what's in the planning board's version, what needs to be in our version, and what obviously it's in the town's best interest to have open space, but we got to make sure that it works with everything else that we're doing. And the third item, I'm not as familiar with, but Joe, it's about the date. So can you, before I turn it over to Rosie, can you just walk us through what the date issue is?
So it sets, I'm not 100% sure either, because I don't know where the March 1st deadline comes from, town meeting, and I guess it's just to make sure that the town acts on this by March 1st of 2026, but we're trying to act on it by December 9th, so I wouldn't think that would be an issue. We should act on it.
It's just and it's not the date it starts, it's the date it
It's a
ends.
sunset, so
Yeah.
if you don't move,
Okay.
if the town doesn't move on, then either party can sever the
So
agreement.
we can let,
It doesn't automatically get
who
severed, but either
identified
party can
it
sever
as an issue?
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. So I'll let you go then. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start with that. Just
Okay.
that, so regarding that, issue number 3, what happens to the development agreement if the PNS is executed prior to that date? Then the PNS is valid, but the development agreement becomes null, right?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be too...
Wait, so the development agreement would be active after December 9th if it passed?
If it passes, right.
But if it doesn't pass,
Right.
then they can't sell the then they wouldn't be able to sell the property.
Well, they would be able to sell the property,
But not,
depending on what legal issues came up with the selling of the property. It seems to me an arbitrary date, and to make sure that there are no hanging chads in this, that date should be pushed out, because that date comes pretty close to the town meeting, and there might not be time for the AG's office to approve the bylaw.
So what date are you recommending?
I'm not sure why that's even in there. I think I would like Merwin to explain to us why there needs to be
Okay,
a sunset clause at all. Why are we doing that?
okay, all right, makes sense. Okay,
So that's the question.
okay.
And did you want me to speak to the other?
Yeah, well, whatever, you can speak to whatever you want to speak to,
Okay.
but those are things I wanted to speak to, but you.
Sure,
you-
well,
you have the
I
floor.
will
Yeah, you
address
have the
these
floor.
three issues,
Okay.
yes, okay. So regarding the right to passage, or the license of people to traverse the property, there's an arbitrary clause that they can curtail or stop residents from traversing the property just when they say so. It doesn't have any boundaries. The town has 2 acres of property up there, one of the most scenic areas in Essex County, and so there should be some sort of a standard as to why they would close the campus to residents traversing through. There have always been trails there, and so it seems it's not binding them. It's not binding them as an easement. It's just you can't arbitrarily prohibit residents from traversing onto town-owned property. You would need to give us a reason, and maybe that reason would be very valid, but to just say it takes all surety out of it that residents can traverse the property.
You're just saying they should have access to the town 2 acres or the entire property?
Well, they would have to have access to the property to reach the 2 acres, so that's part of the whole deal. And also the heritage landscape.
On the map.
It becomes, well, if we decide that
I want to think so.
that the town has not shown us what we need to have shown from residents, maybe they leave trash around. Is that good cause? Maybe there's a way to resolve the issue by the town putting trash cans there.
Rosemary, you're talking about the area in the white, correct? Just to clarify.
Browns Hill?
Yes, the 65,100 square feet.
1.49 acres.
Yeah.
Just so people who are watching it know.
Okay, I was, do you know what, I remember looking at deeds
Okay.
several years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and it was 2 acres, so, that's interesting that it's 1.49 acres now, because an earlier deed says it's 2 acres.
Does the planning board, this map came, we just got this map, I believe, today, so we haven't necessarily vetted it for everybody, but this is what we got today, so we need to vet this, but
CJ.
that's roughly where you're talking about.
Yeah.
The area that's sort of surrounded, yeah, so just people know here what you're talking, when you say the 2 acres of town owns, people may not realize it's the top of the hill.
Yeah, exactly, which
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
okay, so it does have a beautiful view. And so it would lend some surety that residents are going to be able to continue to traverse the property. And if Gordon Conwell is saying that we've always allowed it, then why not just put those few words in that will give the town confidence that residents will still be able to traverse the property. So that's, and also, Chapter 21, Section 17C would protect them as landowners from any issues with the property. I think landowners always can rely on that statute to protect them.
Yeah. Could I add something?
Please.
So the other thing to keep in mind is the development agreement runs with the land. So even if the seminary sells a portion of the land or sells all of the rest of the land to somebody else, the development agreement would remain in effect, and we have no idea in the future what a future owner would think about public access, either to the top of the hill to the town-owned property or anywhere else. So it makes sense to want to have protection for the town to be able to traverse the land, at least up to the part of the property that we own.
And there are
And so
protections,
it's not-
that
so
there
it's-
are
yeah.
legal protections.
So it's not just about the seminary, it's really just about whoever might own the property in the future as well.
Exactly. And remember that this development agreement is always able to be amended at any point in the future. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is talking about the heritage landscape. It's confusing that an agreement to, a prior agreement, verbal agreement, of course, to have a deed restriction is on the property for at least 30 years, or however long is allowed under the law, does not any longer seem to be in play. And that's an important issue. I think it shows goodwill to the townsfolk that Gordon Conwell does plan to not overdevelop the site. Number two, it allows people to enjoy that beautiful landscape. It's it was an important part of the conversation in the 2014, what was the name of that document for 2014? The reconnaissance project, right? That residents really value that site. And secondly, and when the planning board was negotiating the original Browns Hill overlay, that was an important part of the negotiation for the planning board, for the abutters, and also for general residents in town. And so again, this would certainly show a lot of goodwill. It would show the residents that this overlay district will be a good thing for the town, and it would be a selling point at town meeting. So those were the three things that I thought were important to discuss today.
Okay. So for Bill and for Ben, would you like to discuss amongst us, or you would like to have Marilyn come up and sort of talk about those items first? How do you want to go forward with sort of getting your arms around the issues?
Either order is fine with me. I think I'd rather hear from him first, and then we can discuss
Okay.
Sounds
with
good.
everything open.
I get some questions from Marilyn, so Marilyn, why don't you come up and I'll ask you some questions, and then I'll let you talk. Well, let me ask you a couple questions first, if that's okay?
Sure, fire away.
So I always think about balancing a lot of things, right? Balancing what's in the best interest of the town, but also what's gonna get this thing voted for. Because I think there's a lot of good for the town to protect the land, and I know we're giving up some stuff, that's part of negotiations to get, but the town has to agree that that's a good thing, because we gotta get 67%, right? So there's certain things which I think you guys have given that are good sacrifices. A lot of things you're gonna gain in terms of, future potential in the property. In terms of a worst case, I'm just trying to understand, so in terms of the heritage landscape, which I understand now more clearly than I did a couple weeks ago, and the map is helpful, are we agreeing in the development agreement that if you never sell the property, you still have Dover rights over that property?
In the draft that not the most immediate draft, right, because there's that language at the bottom of the draft for discussion, but for as long as the seminary owns it, yeah, the seminary needs the ability, and particularly, there really are two ends to it. The retreat house is now one of the primary buildings for the seminary. We use that now for all of our administrative offices. We've just spent a great deal of money renovating, and we'd invite anybody can come up to see that if the select board members want to do that. It has been redesigned now to accommodate all of the administrative offices. So it's one of the most important buildings for us. We just need flexibility, that if we need to expand it and do something with that we'd be able to. We have no intention of building on the green part, I'm not saying green on the plan there, but the lawn that runs up alongside. When you, at the top there, you see to the left of the HL and right to the left of 643, the number 643, that's a flat area that historically it's been the tennis courts. It hasn't been used for a little bit, but we would like the ability to put the tennis courts back in there to use that space. And then above it, as you get toward Care Hall, you can see the building there in the sort of orange area. There's a grilling area that the students use quite often. There used to be a swimming pool there. They filled that in, and they've created kind of a patio outdoor area for people. It's in the heritage landscape. That's not it's something that we need to be able to improve to provide recreation for students, et cetera. So those are the two things that we're concerned about. We don't want to build onto the uphill side of the road. So, you know, that's not what we're looking for. But in terms of being able to improve the parking or put in, you know, any kind of an addition wing to the retreat house, we just need that. And, you know, that's why we need the Dover rights for that.
Now, are we, and that's why I'm clear. I was under the impression that if they don't sell the property, they have Dover rights over the heritage landscape and the middle campus and the upper campus. What's the?
They're retaining the Dover
Yeah.
rights under both the development agreement and the.
Yeah, correct. So
and
I don't think that's an issue. Do you feel like that's an issue, the way it's written?
That was my understanding of what the proposed amendment was. If I've misunderstood, and we retained Dover rights, which is, yeah, that is what we understood until this most recent version was distributed. But if then it's a non-issue.
That was my understanding. That's why I wanted to get over here to answer that question. My understanding is that, yeah, if you don't sell the property, then you maintain Dover rights. We still want a new developer to come in and build on that
Right.
heritage landscape.
Right, no, and the planning board has been zealous in protecting the property, and we've made that concession. In fact, the NZ as well, those are entirely unbuildable. So all of that green, which consists of over 40 acres now, under the new overlay district will be unbuildable. And we're working with the planning board. They've been willing to, you know, to make adjustments for things like entrances and driveways and sidewalks, that sort of thing. But there won't be any, you know, any buildings on there. We've talked to them about the possibility of, if we need to put a guard shack down toward the entrance on Essex Street, that would be allowed. And they've, as I understand it, they're open to that kind of a thing. But yeah, all that green is going to stay green, and we've been willing to make that concession.
Yeah, so
Well, that's wetlands. You can't build there anyhow.
that's his point. He's saying that people, no, but for the people who don't know it's wetlands, they understand that area, he's just making the point that for those who don't know how the property's laid out, they can't develop in those areas anyways, right?
It's not all wetlands. It's not all wetlands. So, for example, there's a road that goes right through it there to get down to Lower Campus. So, yes, there's quite a bit of wetlands there, but the main entrance to the seminary runs right up through the NZ area. So, you know, it's not entirely wetlands. It's even potential that there'd be an A&R plan to lot out front on Essex Street that we're waiving. Between those two white, if you see the whites, there's a house that's already been built there. But we're giving up that possibility of putting an A&R lot there. So
you're fine with the heritage landscape if you're fine with the heritage in concept.
Yes.
If it sells, that it would last with the sale of the property. They would not develop on that site unless it was a religious institution.
Right. It's overprotected. Otherwise, they would not be able to build there. Yeah.
Right.
We're fine with that.
Okay, that's helpful. And then the public access, right? I know we're not at this point requesting an easement, but we're just requesting as the language, and I just wanted to hear sort of where you recommend the language to be that gives us protection of access to the property, but gives you future ability for security reasons or future, whatever issues you have on campus and how to protect yourself. So I just look interested to hear what you recommend to compromise that. Yeah.
So I do think it's helpful to put it in the context of the whole agreement, because we haven't really recited those things. When you know, in these kinds of negotiations, when you get down to the last little piece, we can also lose sight. You know, the number one thing is that this is now going to free up all 6 apartment buildings to be taxable. They're going to go on the tax rolls, which they haven't been for over 6 decades. And the funds are substantial. You know, we're estimating it'll be northward of $500,000, which would service a significant amount of debt that the town might need to take on, and it's free money because the town isn't getting anything for it right now. So that's the first thing, and I think that's important to keep in mind. We're also waiving our 40B rights over the entire parcel under this development agreement. As you can imagine, that's significant because of the leverage that 40B provides. Beyond that, as the board knows, we are giving up 25% of the units to be affordable. That's going to cost the seminary $1 million in the sale of the property, but we feel like that's the right thing to do for the town in order that once you hit that number, the town, as we all know, we're going to be applying to get all 209 units applied to the housing inventory. If that happens, my understanding is that 40B is no longer a threat to the town. So that's of extraordinary value to the town, and I think it's really important for us to keep that in mind. As well, we've agreed now to pay $100,000 at the passage, another $300,000 when the sale goes through for the apartment buildings, and then another $700,000 in 2 tranches of future developments when the value to the town is realized, and to the seminary rather is realized. As you see from the zoning, the town is going to get over 40 acres of protected land. And so when we come down to this last issue of access, I've sort of been trying to think, I've spent a lot of time and I've talked to town council about it. We've talked about it at length a number of times, trying to figure out how it can happen. It's just that hard, and that it's a fundamentally hard question for us, and I'm not sure there's any way around it. And this is the reason. I'll give you the reasons. First, it is important to note, we have provided access to the town and residents for 55 years. There is no intention of changing that. We're delighted to have it. We've had a disc golf course built there, and we have plenty of people that come down. There tends to be someone playing disc golf every day on that place. We've got people that walk their dogs. We've got people with their horses. We haven't had any problems with allowing people to do that. There's no intention to change it. The town never asked us to do it. It's never been something that's been demanded of us. It's part of who we are as a seminary. These days, the next big issue is security concerns. It's no longer a sort of a theoretical concern. Educational institutions are under attack. We read about the shootings and the bomb threats and the rest. That is a substantial concern for the seminary. What constitutes a threat that would give us the right to turn it, shut it down? We don't know, but to give up that ability to monitor and maintain our control over the access is just key from a security perspective. We've had threats in the past, and so we have to be aware of that. Third thing, we need to control the property for our mission. So, in educational institutions, as we can tell, read the news every day, take positions that get people upset. The seminary some faculty member might write an article that gets one person or one side of an issue upset. What people do these days is not only do they protest, but if they had free access to the property, they could just come in. And it doesn't matter what the issue is or what side of it is, both sides provide people who aren't always rational in the way they handle things. So we need that kind of control over that. Nobody in this room would allow what's being asked here over their own property. The seminary's going to be there. This isn't a deal where we're leaving the property and we're creating a zoning bylaw with the project that's already been fully permitted and designed and everybody knows what's going to be there. It's not. We're selling the 6 apartment buildings and we're going to stay on the rest of the property. And so we just need to be able to maintain that control. And I think the people in Hamilton, they'll appreciate that. They'll appreciate all the other things that the town is getting through this development agreement. We want to be able to maintain the value of the property. We need to know future developments. Even what Joe indicated, it cuts both ways. We're concerned about the marketability to a part of the property if there is this open-ended access that we have no control over. There might be someone who needs to buy the property for private kind of business that there might be some reasons why they need to keep it confidential, et cetera, and control their environment. It creates problems with insurability in terms of getting insurance to cover this kind of a right. Financing issues, we've talked about it with our current lender, and it would be a concern to them. They have a right, they've got, of course, leverage over the whole property, and any future financing, not only for us, for anybody else, that would raise a concern. Liability, I'm a trial attorney, so I look for exclusions and exceptions, and the recreational statute is not a panacea. It doesn't cover everything. It covers only recreational use. So there are plenty of cases involving churches and educational institutions that would go into the question of whether the person was actually using it for recreational purposes. Someone cutting through might not be considered using it for recreational purposes, and therefore the statute wouldn't apply. And then it doesn't cover willful, wanton, or reckless conduct. Now you could say, well, then don't be willful, or reckless, and wanton in your conduct. But again, I try cases. Then it becomes a triable issue of fact. Was the seminary, when they left a ditch there, did they put up enough signs, et cetera? So it creates, that right there creates, it's not a cover-all for everything. It might cover some things, but not everything. You still have a standard of care that's due to anybody under that statute. The issue with good cause, you would think, and I think it would be, it's sort of the layperson, oh, that seems pretty reasonable, just that you got to show good cause. But again, that's something that's litigable. That's something that you can claim isn't good cause. Anybody who's an employer who fires someone for good cause, that doesn't get you out of a potential lawsuit. Seminary doesn't want to be involved in a lawsuit having to justify that something constituted a significant threat. Or even the example that was provided just a few moments ago about, well, if there was trash there, then the town puts trash bins there for it. Now we're having a debate about whether refuse and trash on our property is enough for us to say we need to keep people out or somehow reduce it, the use of the property. Then a next thing is the seminary occasionally has use for, we have commencement there, or we've got donor events, et cetera, and it may be that we need to restrict access for a period of time, and trying to create exceptions that work for that would be difficult, if not impossible. We can't put ourselves in a position where we'd be facing tens of thousands of dollars in litigation costs over whether we had good cause or whether someone was protected under the recreational statute. Then, to go with what the chair just said, the seminary property is just not the kind of property that you can have rights of access on. There isn't. It's not that there's an easement or rather a pathway around the side or a discrete area that, it would be usable by the public. It's just not that kind of thing. It's 100 acres of land which is privately held, privately used, and so it doesn't lend itself to this kind of open access. And then just let me briefly talk about the access to the top. That's the water tower. I don't think the town folks from DPW want anybody running around on the water tower in any event. But even if they did, the point is the town has an easement to gain access to that to maintain the water tower. But it's not an open-ended easement for everybody else. So I don't want the town or anybody listening here to think that there's no access to the town's property. There's complete access. That was deeded that way. It was an agreement back. It's about 100 years old. And the town has the access to do what it needs up on the water tower. So again, we're open to continuing it. We think it's just a reasonable way of doing it. We have no intention of stopping it. But for all those reasons, just giving up that control is just, at the end of the day, it really isn't, you're asking us to waive Dover Amendment rights because access to property is fundamental to how you use it. So I would hope that understanding all these other fantastic benefits to the town, which the select board has negotiated hard on behalf of the town, just will completely outweigh any kind of benefit there might be to getting that access. On the other hand, the prejudice to the seminary, the difficulty to the seminary of giving up that kind of control is just so much that it's really insurmountable.
Well, how do you anticipate that residents, should they want to access the town property at the top of the hill, because there is a beautiful view, how would you anticipate residents would be able to get to that?
Come on in, drive up there. 55 years, it's been there, it's available for them. Come on in. There's a great moon tonight. if anybody wants to go up there and look at the
So we
moon.
could drive up.
If they're welcome to do so right now, absolutely.
So I guess in my mind, the seminary is an understandable security risks. I don't disagree with that. But you have assured us you have no intention of closing things off. But you've just given us a whole litany of causes that would enable you to close it off. So how do we find a happy medium where you're assuring us that this is going to continue, but maybe not?
Well, it's again, it's good faith on the part of the seminary and on the town. We're putting it in writing. We could have just said we're not putting it in writing at all, but we're trying to accommodate, and we have accommodated, and we have been, we've been asked by the planning board and we're saying now the select board, what really do we need and what really matters to us? And I'm telling you right now that this really matters to us. We'll give up $1 million so you can have 25% affordability. We'll give up 40B and we'll not be able to design anything under 40B. Just so you know, once the apartments sell, the only use that we're going to have as a matter of right is to reuse the existing buildings. We have no other, that property has no right to build anything without going through the planning board and its special permit process, which, as everyone knows, is really rigorous. So the town is going to exert tremendous control over any future development through the special permit process.
Well, that's unless through your Dover rights you opt to build something.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That does not include your Dover rights, though. You will still have carte blanche to do pretty much whatever you would like to do with the property. So I think we should not forget that.
Yeah, but it's no different than it is now.
Well, exactly, that's
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying, but Merwin is saying that everything will have to be special permit, and that's not,
If it gets sold to developers.
if it gets sold, right, but we're,
But that affects the value of their property.
of course it does.
That's
My
the-
point is, you're sort of lumping that all in with all these benefits to the town. And I think that people who are watching, and who will watch this tomorrow should understand that that doesn't affect the current use of the property.
The Dover Amendment rights continue, that's right.
That's right.
But it does affect the current use of the property, that's as a matter of right, because the planning board decided that it's not going to be an overlay district. So an overlay district would take this new district and place it over the existing zoning. The planning board has decided not to do that and rather replace it. What's allowed right now is single-family residences, and we've had plans that show 50 houses up there. That goes away with this plan, with this new district. We're not going to be able to do that. We lose the right. So that as of right disappears, and in its place is we can reuse existing buildings, but then everything else we've got to go through the planning boards for special permit for non-Dover purposes.
That's right, that's exactly correct. And also, and just one other quick comment, that while there's certainly some benefit to the town, I don't think anybody would speak against that. Let's be clear that there's an enormous financial benefit to the seminary that is being bestowed by the town so that you can sell these 6 apartment buildings, and they will be amenable to any kind of alterations that the new buyer deems necessary. So there's a huge benefit to the seminary.
Oh, this is a very important thing for the seminary, absolutely. Yeah, we're very happy that when these things are able to be sold, absolutely. It's the new owners can't do anything that they want to it. The zoning bylaw doesn't permit them to do anything that they want. And one of the things we're doing is we're restricting it to 209 units, so they won't be expanded at all.
Well,
I
they'll
think
be
it
able to.
also allows continued operation. If they couldn't afford all that and get that money, then maybe that becomes something different, and we don't have all this open space and
But
have this the last 50 years.
that's their issue, that's right.
But it does allow continued operation. I think that's your path forward. So
We're-
it's a win-win.
But once again, we forget, right? They built 9 houses that have become a nightmare for this town. They're not gonna, that's the whole reason we're doing this. We don't have to go build 50 houses and create 50 nightmares for this town, right? That's part of this protection we're trying to get. So we're trying to listen to the town as well. And so, yes, it's a give and take.
Right,
So I get the give and take. So, and I had one more question, but back to my original question, and I think, appreciate the lengthy response, because you did get there. But once again, yeah, my property, I have easements on it, so it's easy for me to have people, because it's very defined easements. I get the difficulty you have, but I also want to offer something at town meeting that's going to help you get this passed. And so if there's some creative way to create some sort of area on this campus, either in the heritage landscape or something, that we can create some sort of space, an access road or something, I still think that's worth some sort of investigation, so we have that story to tell, because I think it is important that if we're gonna do this heritage landscape and we still don't have access to it, I don't know the right answer. I understand your challenge, and I'm not to disagree with one thing you said, it makes sense, but I would like to be able to, I know that our town, once again, we have to get 67%. A lot of reasons we want to get, a lot of reasons you want to get it. If we don't tell the right story at town meeting and get the consensus, it's not going to pass. So I just think we need to think about what that is. And if it's not everywhere all the time, I get it, but is there something we can come up with that's creative?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the safety liability, you made a lot of great points. I don't know many private properties of that size that allow, just open access, carte blanche like it is. So if there was a way, like to your point, if there was a head trail or something that you could control access and where it is, and even put, if there's events in the schools or in the event of whatever the situation might be, that could be locked down due to the safety of, the property and the people that work there. Maybe even that's a clause in there. But to Bill's point, I think, can you control it? Can you say, here's a head trail and this is allowed access versus anywhere you want to go?
Yeah, the trail signs all the time say, this is private property, be respectful. I mean, there's things that people do with these easements, but I don't have the answer right now. I know we don't have a lot of time to get to an answer, but this is the one thing we don't solve before town meeting. There's some risk to it, but I would like to figure out a way, maybe the next month, to solve it, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Bill.
No, I understand your point 100%. I would struggle with that too, and it sounds like it's your number one issue. So I don't know, but also to your point, we've got, it may go down in flames if 2/3 don't say yes. So is there a way to come up with some type of defined accessibility in certain areas, even, Browns Hill, heritage area? Is there a way to do that? And then that would help your bankers, your financiers, and the safety of your employees.
Right. I mean, our recourse to it is that a lot of times when people come for us, when I was on the planning board, right, when people came for special permit, you would sort of negotiate that into the special permit, like, hey, trails. We did one over at Patton, we did a trail sort of around
Yeah,
Patton Ridge.
And also at Canterbury.
Right, in
So
Canterbury.
is that in special permit or zoning bylaws, or is it not supposed to be in this?
I don't know.
I know that the Canterbrook, it was negotiated into the special permit, and at Patton Homestead, we owned the property, so we created it.
I don't know if it can be written in somewhere, there's a future development of the permit, we agree on some sort of walking
Yes.
trail. Because that's what we did there. It wasn't sort of
That's your
everywhere all the
protection in
time.
there, right.
It's your protection. So I don't know if there's some creative way to do that, but
That makes sense.
Is it time for me to speak?
Well,
let's-
no, not yet.
yeah,
Not yet.
that's nice.
Share
Yeah.
the microphone.
No,
We've done it
sa-
before.
Save your comments, and because I want to go through the board, but save your comments, and, yeah, no, I get it, but, yeah, please, we want to hear you speak, but just save it for a second. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, if you would.
Well, I don't know if we're going on all three, or I had some others, but if it's on topic, let's just keep them all together.
No.
Okay. The heritage landscape, do we have an issue here or not? I'm confused a little bit. It sounds like we
I
don't.
guess we don't.
Okay, I don't think we do either. And then the sunset agreement and the March 1st, did we get an
So-
answer on the significance of having that date and why?
Just so that there is a sunset, right? I mean, it's predicated on the passage and the approval by the AG. So I think Ms. Kennedy's right. I think at this point, probably March might not be enough time to get through AG approval. So, I think we're just saying, at some point, either party might have to say, all right, this isn't happening, so we just don't have it open-ended. So that's why we just want a date.
Okay.
There's no magic to the March 1st.
So is a date or even upon AG approval or?
Well, the thing is, if it,
Submit by a certain point versus,
I mean, and it's for either party that they can rescind it, not that they have to. So, if we've got,
Could I suggest at least 6 months from the date of the town meeting, because it could
That's
take
where I
at
was
least, it could
going.
take at
Something
least
that
6 months
triggers.
for the Attorney General to act, depending on what else is going on in the state, so.
okay, well, we can, June 9 or whatever that, yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay? Better?
That's fair.
Okay, Ben, I'm good, thanks.
Hey, Ben, you got the floor.
So, thanks. It's clear you all have done a lot of work to get us here. I'm not familiar with all of the numbers behind it in terms of the valuation of the $1 million and kind of, could you walk us through the disbursement? Sorry if you guys covered this in the last meeting as well, but in terms of how the payments come into town.
It's on,
It's right on.
it's on page,
Yeah, we did, I think you were out.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So we get a
it's on
100
page-
grand
It's on page 3, yeah.
Yeah, so the-
Number
Section
E.
upon passing, so that's basically as of this upcoming meeting on December 9th, if it passes, 100,000 goes into our purse, and then,
And we're taking the risk on that if there's anything afterwards that
okay,
we're paying it anyway.
and then 3.
And then there's a 300,000, which is actually an increase. We'd offer 250, but then it got typed in as 300, so I guess we lost a 50 grand.
Typo. It's expensive typo.
That looks like an 8 to me, actually.
Bank error in your favor.
There's been more expensive typos, that's all right. And then generally, I guess, like Bill and Rosemary, you've been involved in these negotiations. Is this a fair deal from where you sit in terms of valuation of the property and what we could do for the town?
I mean, there's different thoughts behind it, right? So one is like mitigation costs. I mean, we're supposed to be able to go over reimbursed costs and mitigation costs. It's not just like, we're not a landowner, we don't get a percentage of the sale.
Right.
But we have to sort of
Build
get,
any infrastructure.
mitigation infrastructure. So
Yeah.
this is, based on, based on the fact they gave up $1 million of the value of the apartments in order to go 40B, and then this 1.1 million, they're making basically a $2.1 million investment in town based on the sale of property. And this is just a lower campus, right? So
And how was the million quantified for 40B?
that's, they had offers on the property, but he can talk to
It's
that.
from other
Yeah.
offers that were not 40B?
No, it's the deal we have. So it's been reduced
By
by $1 million
Okay.
if it went 25%, which it has.
Well, we had originally requested that this money be paid for this development, and there would be subsequent requests for subsequent sales. But this is what the seminary thinks is fair, and so we're not complaining about that. However, it doesn't preclude there being mitigation costs for future developments unrelated to this one.
That would come from whoever the future buyer is, depending what they
Right,
propose.
Right, that's why it's
what they-
special
When they
permit.
go through the special permit process, that's when we would
That's
negotiate that.
the good news, special permit, you can say, hey, if you want to do this, you got to pay for these things as part of the special permit process.
And so the special permit granting authority is the planning board,
Planning board, it's not the zoning board.
not the zoning board?
Correct.
Okay. So you've done a lot of engagement with the select board, planning board. How has the engagement been going with the abutters, and sort of what's the process been there?
Yeah, we've had a number of meetings over the several years, including meetings with the consultant that the select board and the seminary engaged. And we've it's sort of been fits and starts in terms of how the process has gone. We've spoken with them. The president has met with a number of people in their homes. He's got an open line. He's invited anyone to call him up. And so I think we've got some abutters here who can speak better for themselves. There are certainly some abutters who they don't like the project, which is understandable. But we try to focus on the fact that there are 290 units have been there for 40 years, so there's no change to the neighborhood. We've used them. There hasn't ever been a problem. And so that's just gonna, it's just gonna be now private people that own it. So hopefully that won't be an issue. And again, it's the point is for us to stay there and not change things for the abutters. So we have no intention of changing things for the abutters. So it's like anything, some people are in favor and some people are less so.
Were there any requests of them, like that they made of you specifically, of the college and seminary?
Well, I don't want to speak for any particular people, but people have, they've expressed what they would like to see happen.
Yeah. Did they request any particular measures or community benefits or things like that they would like to see? If they said, well, if you could assure in some fashion that X, Y, and Z is taken care of before you sell it or as part of that sale, did they ask for anything, I guess, like that accommodation was made? I'm trying to just look for how are the abutters being affected, what's being done on their behalf, because it's one thing for us to say we think this is a net benefit for the town in whole, but it's another thing as far as kind of like those immediately adjacent folks. I'm hoping we'll hear from some of them tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've done almost $1 million worth of work on the wastewater treatment plant, including putting some buffering trees and planting them to create more of a buffer zone. I'm not sure that's satisfied everyone on the street, but we hope that it's been a good faith, more than a gesture, but an actual action that we've taken. And so, I think the planning board has reduced the number of uses, and the planning board members here can speak more to that, but I think that the uses have been reduced, the intensity of the future development possibilities have been reduced. The planning board's been very concerned about the abutters, and so, the heritage landscape is a major concession for abutters, and so, yeah, it's, what you see there is a product of hearing a lot of different input from a lot of different people, including the abutters. And the abutters have been welcome to provide us with any of their concerns as the project has gone forward.
Yeah. Is there, there was sort of like this concept of getting two-thirds vote from the town. It's one thing for us to bring it to a town meeting. So we're going to hear from some abutters. There's also this issue of public access and trying to figure out what shape that can take. I guess there's kind of like, you guys, how are you going to do the math to see that we get to a two-thirds vote if we bring this before the town, I guess?
Yeah, I'd urge the select board, because you guys have the hands on the purse strings, right? There's some major pieces here that benefit the town as a whole. I'm a taxpayer. I live 2 miles away from the place, and my taxes keep going up. And the specter of the school building, we've seen what the town responds to that. So you've got a lot of people who didn't vote in favor of the school system improvement because of the financial nature of it. It was too much money for a lot of people. This is the complete opposite. As a select board, you're saying to the town, hey, this is a way that we get 209 units onto the tax rolls. I haven't had a chance to completely confirm this, but my guess is that this set of apartments will immediately become the single largest taxpayer in town. And it's significant kinds of money. So I anticipate the select board's going to be backing some debt in the future for the school system. And to be able to have this kind of money in the pocket to service debt in the future, I think is going to be a great benefit. So I would hope that the select board would focus on that. The whole thing down at 133 Chabaco or Essex Street with the 40B, that goes away if we get 209 units. The housing inventory issue, you're up above 10%. That's my understanding. So that's all for a town that's concerned about 40B, a town that's concerned about money. This is a great thing. You're not going to the town asking for money for once. You're going to the town saying, as a select board, this is a project which is going to improve our bottom line substantially. We're not getting anything for it right now. We haven't for 55 years. And here's real money that we're going to be picking up. Here's the advantage of the 40B waiver, and then some preservation of the campus. So I think there's a really good story. It's not a story; it's the reality of it to a town that's has financial issues. My taxes, I've lived there for 61 years, and they've never gone down. So I'll be really happy to see this kind of buffering that can happen here.
Just kind of along with wonderful financial advantage to the town, there'll be a lot of costs associated with that also. So I don't think we should just make it seem like this is going to be a windfall for the town. We're looking at this issue as a balanced asset.
Sort of, but the
Sort of.
problem with that is that it's been used. We've had those apartments filled throughout the years, and you've got no revenue from them. So it's money you're not getting right now, and it'll start coming in the moment that we sell. So it's close to a windfall.
Well, we'll still have the costs associated with the 209 apartments in terms of fire, police, schools. So, we appreciate the seminary's position, but I think we also need to be realistic about it being a windfall for both parties, really. If you're going to use the term toward the town, then we'll use that term toward Gordon Conwell. And the town needs to be careful about balancing all of the issues. So I think we need to remember that as well.
Anything else? Okay. With the boards.
Marnie first?
Yeah, Marnie, sorry, yes, please.
Right.
Yes. Marnie, let Marnie speak, and then with the board, we'll let 10 minutes of public comment.
I don't know how helpful I can be on this, but right now, there's the language of good cause. So to attempt to address Merwin's concerns, he enumerated all sorts of cause. We could take out the word good and put in cause, and then somehow limit any potential litigant on the issue of cause to the town itself. And so the town would be very unlikely to initiate frivolous litigation if the seminary actually put forth the type of cause that Merwin was repeating. So I think that if there is no tying of this public access to cause, then that promise of public access is illusory. It's unenforceable, it's meaningless. When the development agreement was executed and the overlay district was approved by the Attorney General, the seminary, and I'm not suggesting that they would do this, but under the development agreement, they could send a notice to the town and public access would be terminated. So without some type of validating device to that promise, it really remains illusory. So I would caution against just writing that off. And then with respect to the heritage landscape, obviously the seminary retains its Dover Amendment rights. It's specifically set forth in the overlay district that it does so. So I would suggest that there be a conservation restriction on that heritage landscape. And the reason for that is twofold, because one, I do think it's important to have public access through some type of trail system. It could follow the buffer area or whatever, it could be done. But if the seminary were to sell the property, that conservation restriction keeps that very, very beautiful part of the campus intact. And that is important to the planning board. We identified the heritage landscape probably within the first couple of months of considering the overlay district. And I think the overlay district cannot impose a conservation restriction. I mean, we can't do that. I mean, there are open space requirements for developers who were to try and do something in other parts of the campus, but not in the heritage landscape. So I think it's important to have that. And in conjunction with that, you have to recognize that heritage landscape is, except for those tennis court areas, is comprised of steep slopes. So when Emil and I first looked at it, we were like, why are you putting a conservation restriction on the middle campus? Why are you tying your hands behind your back for the flat part of the campus where it would be easy to develop, and leaving the heritage landscape outside of that conservation restriction? But it's probably not evident from that map, but they're really quite steep slopes around the retreat house. So it's not suitable for any type of development at all. So I'm happy to answer any of your other questions. I know we're going to have a very...
If we try to define through special permit, like trails, like how does that work?
Well,
There are no trail
we
easements right
couldn't
now.
do it on the heritage landscape we couldn't tell the seminary they had to put trails there. Basically, a lot of what's in the overlay district now is derived in part from either the senior housing bylaw or the open space and farmland preservation development bylaw, and those bylaws talk about the preservation of trails. But I remember when I toured the campus, I walked up this tree-lined corridor to the top of the hill, where I discovered I was really out of breath. That there is, it might not be a formal trail, but there's that tree-lined alley almost that leads to the top of the hill that could be easily demarcated as a path, and I'm sure it's used by the students now. And I will also note that, you know, and I appreciate Merwin's remarks, but my understanding is some of the students are going to be taking advantage of the affordable units when the apartments are converted. So it isn't as if it's just going to be other people, you know, from outside town or town, but it will be the students themselves who might take advantage of those 209, the 25% of the 209 units that are affordable. So I'm happy to
So as far as
answer.
like changing the demographic, hey, Marnie, sorry, Ben up here.
I'm sorry.
As far as like changing the demographics, is that why the demographics don't shift as much? Is because some of the students might be continuing to
I think
occupy?
so. I mean, Merwin can answer that, but I think there still will be some students on the campus. Certainly not as many as there used to be because of the whole way the educational system works these days with
Yeah.
after COVID. But there will be some students, graduate students probably, married couples would take advantage of the apartments, right? They'll be living there. Yeah, right.
Could you speak to, I know that it was mentioned earlier around the limit of uses, the use types. Could you speak a little bit about that in terms of if there were future development, what are the limits of use types that it's?
Well, and Emil can speak to this because he's done a lot of work on this. We started out with an analysis of the Abramson and Associates report, and I don't know how familiar you are with that report, but there were some pretty aggressive development proposals in that report. And at one time, there was a lot of thought that there could be a biotech, like New England Biolabs. There could be something like that on the campus. And given the changes in the economy and given that the wastewater treatment system on the campus wouldn't really be able to accommodate any of that type of form of development, we have scaled back the uses. We do contemplate some commercial uses, but tomorrow the planning board is going to dig deep into this, and not all planning board members are enamored with extensive commercial uses, but we do contemplate some non-residential uses, but we really envision maybe 55-plus housing or congregate care housing like the residents at Riverbend. So those types of development would be the least disruptive, I think, to the neighbors. They would produce less traffic. There may be uses for offices or medical offices, that type of thing. But I actually, as a practical matter, don't see the campus as an ideal location for offices. There's office space available in downtown. You just need to drive through town and you see the signs. And if you have any kind of extensive offices, there are other places closer to 128 or the Cummings Center that probably would service needs better than trying to retrofit buildings that were designed for kind of a different purpose and a different time.
Yeah.
So that's more our focus.
Sort of
and
like
we have
light
public hearings.
commercial uses at most, but more geared towards like kind of commercial, residential.
Limited, very limited commercial. I mean, you know, there's a potential maybe for something in Pilgrim Hall, you never know. I mean, that's there's close proximity to the apartments, so a little cafe or maybe a farm stand kind of thing, an extension of Meadowbrook Farm in the summer. It's something more limited, and we're sensitive to the abutters, and if they have access to the Browns Hill Overlay District, and it's been on the planning board's webpage for a long time. I mean, we've emphasized buffers, landscaping, the whole 9 yards. So we're trying to balance a lot of needs, but we also recognize the town does need revenue. We do need housing on the SHI. So we're juggling a lot of things here to try and get that happy medium. But the bottom line is, we should not go to town meeting unless we're sanguine that this zoning overlay district will pass, for the simple reason that if it fails, we can't bring it back to town meeting for 2 years. So that's something to really consider, and especially the seminary should consider that, because the story that we tell has to be a compelling one. Anything else?
You have two folks on
All
the
right, we
line.
go to public comment. Unfortunately, no one used the 30 minutes up front, but we're down to 10 minutes for this topic. So I have 2 people online. Is there anybody in the,
One in the room.
2? All right, so 2 minutes each makes sense. We'll leave 2 minutes for anybody else who wants to join. So we'll start in the room, then we'll go online. Just introduce yourself. Joe, you can start the clock.
I'm Nancy Dashkin. I live at 215 Woodbury Street. I've lived there longer than anyone else on the street right now, and I can talk fast because I grew up outside of New York City. I've listened intently, I've read all your documents, and there's just a couple of things I want to bring up. First, I sent a letter to Select Board today. It followed Jacob Fiamara's letter, which identified significant issues that need to be addressed that now vague wording seems to just say, okay, we'll deal with that sort of thing later. One of them being the wastewater treatment situation and the recognition, and this leads me to my other point, that once we have the apartments, which I understand will be sold, and there'll be 209, and there'll be residents living there, that is going to change the demographics. I've lived there a long time. I know that the seminary housing is often not full because seminary students often go back to their homes in the summer, or they take classes online, or they rent elsewhere. So while I don't have data and we've tried to get it, I don't think the 209 units have been fully occupied a lot, and certainly not recently. And having lived there since 1988, I will tell you that there are times when, the traffic was a little more or less, okay? There's very little access to that area. And when you have 209 units, the roads in and out of the seminary are going to be busy. And right now, they're not real roads. So when you talk about getting up to see the beautiful views, and I walk often, I've been up there, you can walk on the roads to get up there. But they're roads, but they're internal campus roads. When you have public housing there that people live in, they're going to expect that the roads are going to be like the rest of the roads in Hamilton. Is there going to be sidewalks? Are there going to be sidewalks? Are there going to be adequate access in and out for these people that are now going to be renting there? I think that's a major issue. And the last one, I'll talk a little faster. The wastewater treatment that I live right across the street from is not adequate. They've been working on it all summer, and I've talked with Mr. Sundquist, and I know that they're trying to make it better. But when you add more people, that is not going to be adequate. And everyone says, oh, well, it will be because the new developers will have to, recognize it'll have to be tested. But then you're going to be pushing something into the future that needs to be dealt with before you approve any kind of overlay. It's major. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb Safford. I think those are great points, and they should be answered about access and sidewalks and stuff. But at one point, I think commercial was sought originally when they were going to sell it, and it didn't work. I don't think there was anyone that bit at the apple. So I just want to address that as a comment, which is why I think we're back where we are. I have a question. If the deal falls through, what happens? Because they have the right, I think, to put in single-family homes, which would then preclude public access for sure, right? I mean, so I just wonder, if we push back too hard and it falls through, it's just a question, I don't know the answer. Are we better or worse off if the deal falls through? What happens with that? The students at the seminary are the diversity in our community. And I just want to acknowledge that, because I feel like there's a lot of animus towards the seminary, and having had kids in the school system, all the diversity that we all seek to find in our communities comes from the seminary, and I think that that's been a net asset. I know that it's been a problem with the payment, them not paying their way, and that creates a lot of anger and resentment, but I think that they do provide the diversity. And in private schools, the diversity students they don't pay fair wage either, so it's kind of one of those things that happens, sadly, but I think that net they've provided a lot of value to the students in our community. And I think getting tax revenue for those units makes a ton of sense. I think the impact to 40B being out of kind of that dangerous spot where we can have hostile takeovers like we have at Essex by the tobacco, I think that's a real risk, and I think the community should acknowledge that that's a risk. And I think finally getting paid for all those units is a huge benefit to our town, and I don't want to underestimate it. Not to take away from the concern about traffic and sidewalks, I think those are really important points, and septic and all that, but I think that, I do wonder what happens if this doesn't go through. And I think that should be a challenge as we're balancing these things that we're asking and pushing and squeezing and changing all these things, just to make sure that we're doing an appropriate trade-off, not trying to get too greedy and then we end up with something that's actually worse for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Payne first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Chris Payne?
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm Chris Payne. I live at 205 Woodbury, and I just wanted to echo some of Nancy's concerns. We also live directly across from the wastewater plant, and at times it doesn't smell great. Obviously, it's what's happening in there, but I would like to know sort of what they've actually done to decrease the smell. The trees and the paint are great, signs of good faith. I'd be good to know like what mechanically they're actually doing to fix it. And then to her point also, I think like we need an accurate understanding of what the footprint of people on the campus actually is currently and sort of has been over the last 5 to 10 years. And so that we can get an accurate representation of what 5 years from now might look like, as far as traffic, as far as tax on our school. Like, yes, we would be getting tax revenue from these apartments, but we don't know sort of how many more kids, how many more people might be living there that aren't currently living there. So it's a double-edged sword. It would be nice to get the tax revenue, and I would love to see more diversity in Hamilton. But you don't really know. We don't know how many more kids because we don't know how many people are actually living in those apartments right now. So the only traffic survey that I saw done was based off of the current units and the current future and the future units, not the current residents and the future residents. So there's a big difference between empty apartments and full apartments. And those are the two things that concern me the most. The historical landscape is great. Would love to see it continue, but that's like the most inner part of the campus. It doesn't affect the butters too much. Maybe a selling point to the rest of the town. The things I mentioned are the things that I care about, and I'm literally staring at the wastewater treatment plant right now.
Thank you, Chris. Is that Chris?
Thank you.
That was Chris, yep.
And then, go ahead, John.
Yeah, John Sharp?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a couple things. One of the things that has bothered me on and off about this whole process, and it's been a process, is the fact, and Merwin kind of was hammering home on this tonight, it's all about the money. I mean, everything kind of gets glossed over because the town is going to make so much money, tax money, and that just seems to be, that's going to be the driving point for the meeting on December 9th is money, money, money. And unfortunately, yeah, that's fine for somebody who lives God knows where in Hamilton, but for abutters, yeah, the money's nice, but there are other things. So that's one. I would hate to see us basically go into the town meeting with the idea that the overall concept here is money. Okay, that's one. The other is, and it's bothered me a little bit too, is I know Jake and Rudy and John Despic and others have sent emails, and Jake has sent detailed emails dissecting various documents, various versions of the development agreement, and we've never seen a response from anyone, whether it's either in writing or at the select board itself. Those things just go into a black hole. So when we talk about the abutters having some type of valid stake in this process, I just don't see it. We try, and I give Jake and Rudy and John and others, Nancy has done a bang-up job as well. There's just no response to any of this, and that bothers me because then it tells me that you can basically say that the abutters have a stake, but you don't show the action that you really take it seriously. So that's a problem, I think, for all the abutters, is there's just no response from anyone. Now, I've been to a ton of the planning board meetings, and Marty and the planning board have done an exceptional job in terms of listening to some of our concerns and inherently understanding from just the planning board's perspective what it means to the impact for the abutters, and they've tried to work through that regardless of our input or the like. They've really done that, but I haven't seen it anywhere else. So I'm just wondering, I mean, are we going to get responses to the latest emails? Jake was very point by point by point. Are there going to be responses to these emails?
Okay. Thank you, John. Yeah, I mean, good points. I mean, I think that with public, I mean, I'll give my opinion, right? Public meeting law, we take the emails we get and then we work them into the agreement. Now we try not to work everything in, but if there's, so I apologize, you didn't get specific responses, but we typically try not to respond because of open meeting law. We have to do it in a public setting and not just individually one-on-one. But what I would suggest, which the first speaker listed 4 or 5 items that they don't think got incorporated into the development agreement. We could talk about those things, but I think for next, I don't think we're gonna vote tonight, obviously, but maybe for next week, if someone can come with a butter and speak in the beginning of the meeting, maybe we can address some of those things that you think we still have not included in the development, because we tried to incorporate everything that we can, that we've gotten from lots of different people into the development agreement. So without singling people out, we've taken bits and pieces from everybody.
The 3 that I'm hearing are, the traffic, the wastewater treatment plant, and then that public access. That those are the 3 elements where it's, just to summarize, right? So we don't have to wait 2 weeks, but in terms of being able to continue to make progress, those are the 3 things that seem to stand out as abutters where there is the most concern. It is the traffic, the wastewater treatment plants, like capacity and capability to treat the sewage and what happens if there's an issue, and then access to the public land on the site. Those are 3 things I'm hearing that.
And on
we
those,
have resolution on.
were traffic studies, were the work on the septic area, was that on current occupancy, or, it was a good point, or is it at full capacity? And are the roads, they are, someone called them inter-campus roads, that's what they are. I mean, are they gonna be brought up to a standard? Has that been looked at? So there's you know, sidewalks, for instance, that was mentioned, and proper drainage and width, and there'll be roads that are plowed and taken care of by the town, I would assume.
No,
No, we're not accepting any, we're not accepting any roads.
No, they will remain private roads.
So we won't, there's nothing to address this public safety, driving on those roads, policing them, accidents.
So I think Rosie referenced earlier that that we've been pushing to try to open up those roads to make them wider, make them accommodate better traffic, maybe take the one-way off of Bridge Street and make it a two-way, things like that, to try to find ways to disperse the traffic. But
So
most
how
of
do you
the-
do that on a private road? I mean, is
Well,
that been
that's one of the
addressed? I
things
guess
we're
that's what I'm
trying to-
asking.
I don't know that that has been addressed, as far as
That-
answering questions about the treatment plant. There's been a lot, all I know is that there's a lot of work that's been going on. We could invite somebody from the seminary to come to the next meeting and answer that question, and the question about access to the student housing more specifically, because, you know, those are valid concerns that aren't really addressed in either the zoning or the development agreement specifically, so.
But there would be, in reality, so I think a couple of things. The first one is the wastewater treatment plant is managed and permits are given through DEP. So that's not something that the town would individually manage. I mean, we would have to correlate with our storm, I don't know what
So
the
the-
term
the-
is, the
the-
public health, the Board of Health.
The health, the state,
But it's the
but that's because
truth.
it's the truth.
I know, but Nancy
Yeah.
made a good point, though, like, we should address the first two things, and I'm looking at section E, where it
Right.
talks about, you know, going through the apartments. We know that's gonna impact traffic, we know that's gonna impact
So-
the sewer section.
Right.
So that should be addressed now, not when it's at our doorstep.
tried to get data, and we haven't been able to get.
So can we get that data, you know, for our next discussion relative to the studies
So again,
and
that-
impact?
that-
But what, he said $1 million has gone into the plan, is that,
Right, so.
is that tree and landscaping, or is that
So,
capacity?
and I hear the valve concern, we should talk to him, but the
Right.
problem is that, number one, the treatment plant needs to work and be the capacity of the unit, of the apartment units and the seminary right now.
Or the
Like, that's a
DEP,
current thing, we don't
right.
have to wait for any development agreement.
Right.
It
Yeah,
needs
but
to
it's
meet the
gonna go up, though.
capacity.
We all know that. I mean,
No,
No,
it's
time
not,
out.
it's
No,
not
no.
gonna go up. It's based on the number of bedrooms.
Yeah, it's
The
based on the
state
number.
will have a standard, just the way we would, if we were doing it, if this was a local, simple septic, Title V septic permit, the Board of Health and the septic inspector would design
Yeah.
based on the number of bedrooms in the house.
so it's already
yeah,
up to code for the
so
number of bedrooms.
So they will look.
It
the
should
state-
be.
And it takes it
Right,
out
if
of
it's
the town.
not, then that's a
The state
separate-
doesn't allow the town to address that at all. The state requires its own permitting process for anything, any plant that large. We're not even allowed to be involved. So our local Board of Health can't get involved. We can ask for information from the seminary, but it's a private entity, they don't have to provide it. We've asked for it, we can ask for it again, we can ask them if they would send somebody to the next meeting to try to answer that question, but
But we don't need to wait for the development agreement to get it to be compliant. It should be compliant now.
And that's not part of the development agreement, right?
It's not because we
it's-
don't govern that.
because there's nothing we govern, there's nothing we can
Exactly,
control.
Exactly.
And that's
And I
where-
think we've talked about that before, and I appreciate that it's very frustrating.
But we're talking about,
Things
things, I
that
think
we
those are
can
more important than
control.
what we
They are
spend the
more
first hour
important, but
talking
we don't have the jurisdiction to dictate
Right.
that.
What we can do is we can advocate, right? And that's,
Right,
to
we're talking about how
listen
we
and
partner
to
get it
advocate.
to pass, and how we say, okay,
And-
yeah, I would think we should be able to understand right now. I mean, they said there's a smell issue for that.
And there
you know.
has been for
mean,
years,
but
right?
that's,
Been there since 1988.
Right.
And-
It comes and it goes. My women's there. This is something.
Sorry, there's people who
Yeah,
can't hear
let's
you,
keep
so.
with the mic and.
Share the mic,
So-
but,
so my-
I'm gonna let you speak, but we're just gonna finish up here and then we'll
Yeah.
get some input, but.
You know, just a question I have, if these are ongoing issues, has anybody contacted DEP to answer your questions? Because really, it's not under our jurisdiction, and I know you're frustrated, but it's just not something that we have the legal authority to deal with.
You mean you're going to say the town doesn't have the right to go and ask the state for the information? I'm not asking you to adjudicate anything. Just ask for the information. Or you want a citizen of your town to have to figure out, who do I call at DEP and all this kind of stuff? Can I have the health department?
We can get the information.
Can?
Yeah,
Well,
we can
that's,
ask for it, I don't know.
and let's get it electronically, okay, please? There's a lot
we
of,
can ask for it. That's what I'm saying.
there's a whole list of,
Yeah.
look, there's statutes, there's guidelines, they have to have a whole bunch of documentation in order to have built it in the first place, which is probably all outdated, and then to maintain it and to upgrade it and the like. So let's get all that documentation.
I'm just surprised that DEP wouldn't give that to you.
A private citizen? Well, you tell me, who do I call?
DEP, and
Why can't I ask my town, the health department, to do that?
then that's putting us in the position of dealing with abutters and the seminary.
But that's what we're doing.
Well, but for that issue, we don't
Now is the
have,
time to
we
address it.
don't have the jurisdiction.
We can ask
It's
the
not a question of jurisdiction. A town, you have the right to know what's happening in your town.
Nobody has really ever brought us a formal complaint. You have complained, but you have not asked us until right this moment to help you with this.
I have raised this issue at other public meetings here.
You have not asked us for help until now. And I would defer to town manager. I'm not sure where we stand in that. Are we an intermediary? I don't know. I don't know.
So the reason I kind of just was summarizing a lot of the comments that we're hearing from the people in the room today, the people online today, is that these are open issues in the minds of the people in our community that we need to be able to, because it's, one of the people who said it's not just about money, it's sort of there are impacts to abutters, and if this is a good deal for the town, it should be a good deal for the abutters as well. And I think that everyone's been working really hard, and I think what Rosemary's saying as well around working within our jurisdiction to try to continue to fight for the things that we have more influence and control over. And then, kind of like now today, we're switching gears a little bit on these other three items in particular. There's some we have more influence and control over than the wastewater treatment plant in particular, where what we can do is we're interested to try to help. What we can do is try to advocate, and we're asking the seminary as well to say, well, what's been going on? Do you guys have an operating permit? Are you in good standing with the DEP? Do you have documentation that shows all of that? These are the types of things that will trip us up, when we try to bring it before the town. And if the feeling is that we want to get it approved because these issues are solvable, let's get that information, right? Let's not have these last little few hanging chads be the things that trip us up.
And I'm wondering if you have talked to the seminary directly about your concerns?
I have.
And you have not gotten the response that
I do not expect to get documentation from the seminary as to why should I get it from the state? The state has the information.
I would think that the seminary would perhaps have their certificate of their permit.
Well, I'm sure they have a copy of it. In fact, by law, they're required to have a copy of it, but they aren't required to give it to me, an electronic copy of it.
They haven't.
I'm sure they're not going to give me an electronic copy. Why shouldn't I be able to get it from my state?
Yeah.
And why shouldn't I be able to get it through my town? My town representatives.
They're not required to provide to us. Like I said, we can ask for them.
You
but
could, well,
they're not
I'm just
required to
asking
provide it to
you
us. The state doesn't provide it.
I would think that the town of Hamilton is going to get more response than a single citizen from the town.
We will ask. We don't think it's an unreasonable request. We will ask, but we do not govern them nor.
We can't control
Well,
what happens.
if they won't give it to you, what do you think? How do you think they're going to give it to me?
Well, we're not saying they're not going to give it. It's just, I am on the side of residents, okay? And so I'm not trying to fight with you. I'm just trying to find a way. So I'm asking, have you called DEP? And if you have, what have they told you? Have you asked the seminary, and what have they told you? I do understand this has been a frustrating problem. So just asking the questions. I'm just trying to gather information.
I have not made the inquiry because I look at the list of names. How do I know which one to even start? Now, I can start making, phone calls and sitting on line and the like, but I don't understand why my health department, I assume that representing my health department knows who, that long list of names, and like, who would be the right person to call?
Yeah.
But we're working on an agreement where there's a current developer who's gonna fill up 209 apartments like that.
I don't wanna
So
wait-
It's fair for us to ask those questions. I'm supporting what you're saying, like, we know that, but that's the first two things that will happen, right? So is septic, sewer, roads adequate to support that at full capacity? We should know that right now today.
But you're asking people to vote without.
I'm saying we should know
information.
that for our next meeting.
We're agreeing.
Right. I
We're
mean,
agreeing with you.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but but people,
That's
the
great.
concept is, right, that the 209 units have been there for
I know,
55
but we're
years,
getting
right?
money
So-
on them now.
I know,
We're getting-
and I
those
get
are
it,
the two
but-
most likely
But that's
things that will
the
happen.
concept, right? So we had to make sure, right, it should be compliant because it should have been designed for it, so we could validate that. And I'm sure the new owners are not gonna buy a piece of property worth millions of dollars unless they validated that. So I'm assuming the new owners have done their due diligence too, but.
Should be
but
an
that's-
easy ask then.
But there should be an easy ask. And then the second thing is, once again, the same thing with the roads, right? The roads are gonna be private roads. They're not building any new infrastructure, not building any new units. The roads have been there. So for them to improve their roads, to have marketability, is something that they're gonna choose to do as the landowners. As a special permit, if somebody wants to do a new development, that's when we get the opportunity to say, traffic study, new road, new sidewalks. But until that happens, it's existing conditions that existed for 55 years. So, once again, I struggle with that too, like, we can't demand that they do new things. It's not, so I don't know what to do with that one either, but we can talk about it.
So I have a question for Marnie. Marnie, presuming that the potential developers are able to buy this and rent the 209 units, they do have to go through some sort of, at least a site plan review, don't they? So that the police and the fire can understand the width of the roads and things like that, so that there's safe passage? I mean, wouldn't that be part of the approval process?
Apply, and Amy just whispered in my ear that there wouldn't be a certificate of occupancy for those units if the septic system weren't adequate to deliver the services. And that would also include, the existing services
Right.
from the other buildings on the campus.
Right.
So I actually think it's a really good idea if someone from the town does contact the DEP and get skinny on what's happening there. And I agree with you that if someone from the town calls the DEP, they're much more likely to get
Yeah, I would think so.
response, than an individual citizen.
Okay.
Because you're exactly right, this really does play into town meeting, because although we like to go to town meeting and say, this is just a vote on an overlay district, that's not to say the people who go up to the mic aren't going to be going off topic and talking about the smell and the traffic and all the other things that we like to think is tangential to the overlay district and the future development of the site, but it's what's happening now that is really of concern to people.
So just to,
answers to those questions are important to have at hand
right,
and not just brush them off. Because, for example, I know I've told you this, there's nothing that the planning board can do in the overlay district to address that septic, because our jurisdiction is to write a zoning bylaw. There's nothing in zoning other than site plan review that says that a zoning ordinance can say your septic system has to measure this, that, or the other, and provide this, that, or the other. That is the DEP, that's the Board of Health. So it would never appear in any bylaw. If you look at our zoning bylaw, all the other overlay districts, the senior housing bylaw, they don't mention any type of septic system other than to say you have to have adequate utilities.
And that's-
So we would look to see if they're
that's the Board
adequate
of Health,
utilities.
yeah.
But we don't, have a metric or anything in the bylaw that actually addresses
No, I understand that. This whole idea of the demographics, the demographics, when it's privatized, it'll be significantly different than the current.
So
The stu-
I hate to do this, but we had public comment. You just came up to address the
Okay.
septic issue. we're gonna have public, we're not gonna vote tonight, we're gonna have public comment next week. I invite everybody, please use the first 30 minutes of the meeting to do public comment, because I do wanna hear what you say.
Yeah.
But I just can't,
We missed that opportunity.
yeah, we missed that opportunity today, so nobody spoke. So please, have the abutters come by, you have 30 minutes up front, use that, all that 30 minutes, that's what it's reserved for, to hear you guys speak. So, and I said, the emails you send go to the attorneys, they go to the people working this thing, so we can incorporate them. Yes, I probably don't respond to every email, because just, you get into open meeting violations. I just don't want to ever get into open meeting violations, so we don't respond to things, because I don't want it to become a debate on email.
Yeah, so in terms of the road access, I understand that with site plan review, there will be some discussion about road adequacy for the proposed new use.
Ascertain, from the police department and
Right.
the fire department,
Right.
whether or not the access is sufficient.
Right, safe, right, exactly. So that will be addressed in the site plan review, so,
I mean, we can't, at this juncture, get to the broader issue of, say, the intersection of Woodbury and Essex.
no.
Sorry,
we're-
Monty, people online that can't hear, but if we're gonna continue this conversation,
Okay.
you should go to the mic, but there's people online who probably can't hear you there.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
no,
And-
but it's, so Ben, yeah, you summarized some things. I think there's more things there, so I think it's, wastewater,
Traffic.
roads, traffic
Demographics.
study, but the road conditions, and then also the traffic study. And then basically making sure the residents, the other thing, make sure the residents feel like they're, so we have to figure out a better way to, even though we don't maybe do every email return, maybe we can do one, maybe next week we can just go through the emails so people know that they've been heard and how we've addressed it. So not everything's gonna be incorporated, right? We understand it's a balance, right?
Negotiation, too.
And then money, what else? I think Maren did a pretty good job addressing 10 items, and maybe only half of them related to money, other half, so I think it's important that maybe the seminary will help create some market material where they really list the benefits that's to the town, and help us, so it's not just about money, because I think that there's a lot of benefit, because once again, we had 9 units go up on Bridge Street, which became a nightmare for this town, and we're working really hard to not have that happen again, which is what this is about, and to create a tax base so we don't have financial system in the future. So there's a lot of side benefits of diversity, and having good neighbors, and having the seminary stay here, and not having to not have the funds to stay here and having to go somewhere else. So I think we need to do, and I agree, it's our job as ambassadors to talk about this stuff. Right now, we're trying to be tough and negotiate, but I think at a certain point, it is in our best interest to have the town vote for it, which is what we want, right? So I'll talk, and then we'll go around the room again, but my opinion is that we're obviously not ready to vote tonight. I would like to vote next time, even if it's an initial vote, to see where we stand, because we only have 2 more meetings. We have next week and then Tuesday. So I'd like to be able to vote next week on a development agreement, with the following week being if we need to make some amendments to it. What we're voting on is not the final development agreement, it's what we put in front of town for town to vote.
No, you vote on the development agreement, the zoning gets put in front of the
No,
town.
but I mean, we,
Your
yeah.
development agreement will be
but
final.
it'll be, yes, it'll affect the town meeting, right, so.
Right.
But, yeah, I'd like to vote in 2 weeks, even if it doesn't pass, at least this tells us where we stand as a group, right?
That's fair.
And then, so that's my opinion. We agree, or?
No, I agree.
Okay.
I don't think it will pass with all these
Yeah.
open questions
Yeah.
right now, so we've got to work together. If that's the goal, then the will of the board as well,
Right.
to move something forward. We've got a lot of open
I think-
questions, and people will get up at the mic and throw enough gray into this, and probably rightfully so, because there's a lot of stuff I think should have been answered like this tonight that weren't, this will not pass.
Okay. And then, I was gonna invite Maren, if you wanted to have, you're here, you heard from the public. You don't have to speak, you can come back in 2 weeks, but if you'd like to say anything else, I'll give you the mic again. Otherwise, you can pass till next week. Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks,
weeks.
yeah.
I just want to make sure we kind of
October 20th.
bring what we want, and I think, Ben, you recapped it nicely, so that we can answer those questions or know what we know, and maybe we ask Joe to reach out,
I mean,
like we talked about for some septic-related issues
Yeah.
and other things.
and it sounds like the seminary has done has made a significant effort to try to engage with the community on this. However, it's sort of like, we need like some aspects of that, are there abutters who are kind of like, who feel like their concerns have been addressed and that they're in favor of the project? If there are letters of recommendation from people who are most affected by the project, you know, I think that that would be helpful as well. If that's something that you're able to bring to the table, because the people who live right next door, you know, I know it could be a good thing for the town in whole, but let's see what else there is there. And if anybody who's here tonight wants to stick around for an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and in terms of the residents here who want to chat, I'm willing to stick around for another little bit before wrapping up.
Can't be more than 2
But
of us
nobody
here.
else can be,
Can't be more than 2
the
of
rest
us
of the
here.
board people
Yes.
can't, but
Can't be
I'll,
more than 2 people here to have that conversation.
yeah.
I just want to highlight too, like the Heritage Landscape does have a butters on the backside, so although it is in the innermost part of the campus, there are butters on the backside that will benefit from that, so, but just wanted to,
There's 2 butters.
but there are butters, yeah. But there are butters there, I just wanted to make that clear. All right, Joe, is there anything else we need to discuss on this today?
Bill, when Joe's finished, I just have one quick comment. So we have heard the residents, not just tonight and not just you folks, talk about the wastewater treatment plant. And I'm wondering where the seminary stands on disseminating information to the abutters, because they're saying to us that they have no idea, so they're coming to us, but you hold the permit. And so I'm wondering if you could bring that information so that the abutters would have it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, you spoke today, Marion, about how you've done improvements to it, there's a reason why you've done improvements, there must be a story about what was wrong, why you improved it. It would be good to have that for next week. You could come now and speak, but if you want to do some research first and come fully prepared, I'd rather you have all the answers when you come.
Next meeting, not next
But then not next week, but next meeting.
The 20th, isn't it? The
Yeah.
20th, yeah.
October 20th.
Why don't I come? I'll go up to say that I'll come back.
I just want to make, I mean, you've heard the comments and,
Yeah, let me come back fully prepared, how's that?
okay,
Yeah, we'll try to answer these questions. I think we'll have answers.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. That's up to the chair.
Yes, please, I want to get everything out there, so make sure you don't ask a question.
Dr. Sundquist emailed me this summer, and he told me that, you know, they were making improvements to the sewer treatment plant. And I emailed him back, and I said, oh, well, you know, there's been a lot of noise over there, so on and so forth. And then I said, but why are you really doing this? Is it to get this readied for the sale? You know, I mean, I'm not stupid. I would think that what you're doing, I was pretty forthright with what I said, you know, don't fool me. You're getting this ready because there needs to be improvements. And he emailed me back and said, oh no, it's just for the abutters to, you know, appease their concerns. You know, I'm sure some of the cosmetic treatments are for that, but we've been through this with not only the sewer treatment plant, but with other issues in years past. And I'm sure they're making the improvements to try to
Well,
get.
no, of course, I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
But-
right, it
but-
makes
but-
sense.
But
Let's
there's
be
209
honest.
bedrooms, there's 209, it should.
But I just want to say,
Right,
yeah,
should
I
make a
did get it.
difference,
I
right.
got one email, and it was just to me, and I emailed him back. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Well, I'd like to address this. Then we've got to,
Yeah, one more, and then we'll move on to the next topic, and we're going to talk about it next week, too. Not next week.
2 weeks.
Next meeting, sorry.
Yeah,
Next meeting.
I'll bring,
He's coming next week.
wants to be here next week.
Sorry, Marilyn, go
Next
ahead.
week's a holiday, and the day after is my birthday, so I'm not going to be here.
yeah, I saw the communication that Nancy's talking about. Some of the improvements are made as part of the preparation for the sale, but some of them are made for the abutters. So the sale doesn't require trees and painting and all that kind of stuff. So I'll bring all the information as to what the money was spent on and the state certifications. And Rosie's absolutely right. It's all state regulated. So
Thank you.
All right, no, this is good discussion, I appreciate everybody's patience and input, and a little bit off script,
Thanks
but
for letting us go.
we think a little off script, but I think it was helpful, right? Because
Sometimes you gotta go off script.
that's right.
Get to the other side.
All right, so we're going to move on to our regularly scheduled program. Thank you all for coming. So we met on August 13th. We met on August 13th at the COA to go over 2 things. We went over Joe's review and the town manager review, and then we did town manager goals.
Yes.
I've come back as part of and sort of tried to consolidate the town manager goals. I didn't like this up with you, but but you're gonna finish the review process and consolidate the review comments, because I don't think we have to put that into the public record. So
Okay.
I was gonna take care of goals, you were gonna
Maybe I
take care of the
didn't say
review, so,
Yep.
so we just need to get that into the, public
So what
record.
do we need to do with that?
But
I mean,
tonight
I
we're just gonna-
sent the review around when we reviewed it at the library, I mean, at the.
Yeah, so what does he have to do to finalize the review?
The board hasn't confirmed that it's finalized, and
Okay.
then you do
Why
that,
don't
so
you
that
just-
you
Yeah.
release
So
it back
put it
to
on
me,
the-
release it back to me as finalized, and we can
Yep.
make it
Put on
available if
next-
people
Put
want
on
to see
next
it.
meeting's agenda to just sort of vote on it to say this is the final review.
Okay.
So take a look at it.
Part of the consent agenda next time.
Yeah, something like that, okay. So what I did is I took everybody's notes, and I sent it out, and Joe, you can pull it up on the screen if you want to, I sent you the PDF.
Yep.
But we said we're gonna identify the top 10 list,
Yeah.
okay? So I came up with creatively 13 items, because 3 of them are really gonna be done in the next 6 months, because they're really old items that are just not quite done yet, so I have sort of 3 in process, and then I have 10 that aren't sort of, and these things that we all talked about, but the way I formatted it, right? So I gave everybody a copy of it. There's extra copies here if anybody wants one from the,
I got it, copy right here.
and Joe put this on the website this week. All right, so I'll walk through it, and then we can, I'm not gonna walk through everything, but we talked about it in groupings of things. So the 3 things that we have from the previous year that's in process is the Gordon Conwell site, which we spent, a lot of time on. So the goal is that by December 9th, we have a plan in place. If not, by then we move on, or we could continue to work on it, maybe try and do it in the April meeting. But that's sort of why that's in process. The number 2 thing is the MBTA, the 3A. And really, that's still open just because we have to finalize it. So Joe, there's things we need to do, right, to finalize it?
We've sent everything in to state, we're just waiting for the state to refer back
And
in.
then we just want to make sure we educate everybody, right? This is what's passed, and we make sure educate towns and boards and our employees to make sure they understand how to manage it, mitigate it, enforce it, all that stuff, right? So that's on there. And then the third one is, 3B is
Town hall?
supposed to be 3A, sorry. Supposed to be town hall, which is really the move, and, finishing the project on time, on budget, the move, plan, ribbon cutting, opening plan, communication, all that stuff. And then the last one was the defined systems, protocols, new initiatives that we should reset and modernize as we move, as part of the move-in. And one of the things we talked about, obviously, was digitization of records, right? Which is not gonna happen now, because they've got other things to do, but Joe is gonna take that on as sort of a longer-term project on how to figure out how to digitize what we have. But the 10 that we came up with, and I don't know that I put them in the right order, and we can talk about that if we need to have to be in an order. The 10 we talked about was obviously water, was number 1, cell tower was number 2, council on aging was number 3, external community outreach communication was number 4, Patton Homestead was number 5, traffic sidewalk safety was number 6, Patton Park was number 7, the school agreement and the school budgeting was number 8, regionalization was 9, and the 10 was sort of third-party town services, which at this point we identified as trash recycling and compost and ambulance. And negotiate future contracts with the ability to maybe do it in-house. So those are the 10 things I came up with, and I will turn it over to you guys, see if you want to talk about any of these individually, and we can go through the detail. And then I put in, on the 3rd page, was other items we identified but didn't necessarily make the top 10,
Sorry.
which was, if you go to the 3rd page, Joe.
Yep.
Master plan,
Come on, Joe.
master planning, basically implementation and initiatives, all that stuff, master plan, the properties, proactive communication about future properties that are, might become on our radar, larger properties, staff planning, policies, grants, commercial growth, affordable housing, select board communication, and capital committee. So these things he works on necessarily, but they're not necessarily part of the top 10. They're just sort of ongoing things. Some of them are hard to identify. Some of them are ongoing, no matter what we do every year. He's working on this stuff. but it's, so it wasn't really sort of a top 10 for 25, 26, it's sort of an ongoing activity. But I basically use the same format we used for the past goal setting, and just added our notes to it. So,
I think that, I like the 10. I don't know if regionalization's the right name for number 9, or, because that, we have other IMAs that I guess aren't really regionalization, but, and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Is that the right word, would you say?
Regionalization, shared services, I mean, it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
it's not always, it doesn't, you know, to share services with another municipality doesn't necessarily have to be a neighboring municipality. You can always, you know, share certain types of things you can share.
No, it speaks to all of that in the bullets, but I just don't think the title captures it accurately, that's all. But it's just the title. But I think, yeah, I think you've captured everything.
Can you think
Master
of a
plan, I'm
better
not sure
one?
if that should have rolled up into there, like how do we implement it?
Yeah.
And really start putting the document to use.
and what I try to do is you're not necessarily responsible for things, but I use the word, like we talked about, initiate, like at least organize the discussion.
Yep.
Because you can't resolve the stuff, you can just initiate it. So that was sort of the word I used to define things that you initially resolve, but you can make sure we shepherd us all in the right direction. Schedule the meetings,
Yep.
bring the documents together, bring the people together.
Yeah, I think I share with the master plan, but I also I think about it with the capital committee items as sort of our long-term roadmap sort of stuff, like what does the next, 10, 20 years look like? How are we reporting out on sort of what our long-term financial plan is? So I sort of link those two items in my head.
Which two, sorry?
Master plan
Okay.
and the capital committee, almost with item number 4 around communication and community outreach.
I mean, master plan properties, commercial growth and capital committee are all sort of the same thing, so we could lump them together.
Could we just call it financial management?
Yeah.
As the header.
Long-term
It's
yeah.
like, stay within operating expense budgets, capital planning, build a 5-year strat plan, and
Right.
bring, information, we talk about prioritization of projects and.
I think, yeah, exactly that, right? We've got water and schools in the top 10, but it's also, then how do they tie back into these other long-range efforts? And I think for me, and the feedback we hear on a lot of these large items, let's call it, that affect a broad range of the community, people kind of want that ability to kind of foresee it, coming down the road. And I had somebody at my office hours today kind of bringing that up again, so it's a consistent theme over the past 6 months, wanting that visibility. So I like the idea, Bill Wilson tying this kind of together into something.
Financial management bucket, I think.
Do you
It
want
talks about sources,
to
uses.
bring those in the top 10? I mean, with sort of,
Or maybe there's something in there that just gets recategorized.
Just gets subsumed into it.
I mean, financial management could even be part of regionalization. I mean, that might be a means to manage
Yeah.
your funding, you know what I mean? And then we
That's a
could
good
expand
idea.
on a few more bullets or bring into that, the capital committee, a 5-year strat plan, and sources, uses of funds, prioritization.
or is- and it
I would
is-
just maybe change that to that, and then we could pull, I'll take a stab at it if you want to pull that into it.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Are you still on the Capcom?
No.
Okay. Mike, 2 minutes.
Yeah, he was on it.
liaison for Capcom.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that everything you've put in the top 10 are pretty good. I would just have a comment about communication with select board. I think sometimes, and Joe, I don't really know how to solve this issue, but I think sometimes things come to us that you've been working on for a while, but it's totally new to us. And I'm wondering if, as you're working on something, I mean, you certainly put out the biweekly information sheet, but for us, maybe you could put a little more depth into something that you're working on and send that to us. Is that possible, or is that,
Yeah, I
I
can,
mean, sometimes I just feel
Everything,
really.
everything's possible, it's just that nobody can reply to it. That becomes difficult when every email he sends out says, do
Yeah.
not reply to all.
Well, right, but, but
As
if
long as we
we,
maintain that sort of the guideline, I'm fine with it, it becomes so tough sometimes.
Right,
It's like,
no.
oh, I have a question on this, boom.
and I would just
Yeah.
send that right to
Yeah,
Joe.
which is fine, yeah.
Because that's been
Yeah.
beaten into me. Do
I think
not
it's absolutely fair
reply all.
request, as long as we don't.
Yeah. Sometimes that's helpful to understand what's going on more in depth, so I feel like, at least for myself, maybe others feel this way, but to have more of a participatory conversation about it instead of just asking rudimentary questions.
No, I think that's fair request. I mean, there's, when we met, we kind of went through it, but it was a long meeting, so we never kind of went back through it again. But then when you start to go back through it and you realize, like, we have a lot of things we're trying to do, right? So we have 10 things on the top 10, maybe some of them can be combined, then we have another whole page of things that are in the background Joe's working on. So I just also want to set them up for success
Success, right.
as well, too, so I just want to give, obviously, everything's important to us, and we're trying to do a good job balancing, but I also want to make sure that we, so I mean, maybe we'll vote on it next week, and next meeting, keep doing the same mistake. Next meeting, maybe you guys can think about prioritizing it in different order, if we think prioritize is important. I don't necessarily know it's important to prioritize, I just think we have 10 items on the list, but if we want to prioritize it, we can maybe think about that for next meeting, but, and then we'll try and combine the sort of the long-term master plan, financial plan, strategy into one topic with some measurable things for Joe to work on.
Yeah. So maybe the communication, number 4, we could just put communication with select board as
We could just
a,
add that
Yeah.
to it. Because I separated them, but this could be
Yeah.
communication in general,
Yeah.
and not just public communication. Okay. All right, I'll work on that. Joe, you can please comment on it, too. I know you just got it today,
Yeah.
but
Yep. I
if
can
you
go
go
with.
and give me any comments you have. I did take into account your notes that you sent me. And I'll let we got a few minutes here, so any public comment, you can please come up on this item.
Hi,
Go ahead.
just quick question on the properties, proactive communication with owners and developers to understand future plans on page 3.
Yeah.
Reviewed larger properties in town which we know might be sold or developed in the next 5 years. Brick End Farms, I think that's being developed,
just part.
or just a part of it. Winthrop, I mean, that should be off the block at this point because it's still going to be a school. Tobacco Woods is under negotiation with Essex, Greenbelt. Welch and Lamson, I think, was just sold, and the seminary is what we're talking about. So I'm just wondering about the list of those, whether it should just not be there, and just proactive, just sort of generic.
It was just examples.
Okay.
Just give examples.
Because of course, that's like a red flag, right? When we see some of them, it's like, we just want to take that school off the
They're-
block at this
they're-
point.
We've been talking about, so, yeah.
But for the future, for the 5 years, like, I think if we could take Winthrop at least off that list, that would just abate any agitation over not accepting the results of
Yeah.
a very contentious election. Thank you.
Yeah, and Welsh and Lansing, since
Yeah.
that's already been sold, but
Yeah.
good thought process, Bill.
I think the whole gist of it, the idea is to stay ahead of stuff so that
Yeah.
we know what's ahead of us.
Right, sounds great. Yeah.
And that,
Anything else on that topic?
No, I'm just a little unclear, like, because the email I sent out on the 13th was, that, and we talked in detail about his review. I mean, is there something else I should do to that document?
No, I think it was just that we reviewed it at that meeting, and we're gonna make any comments to it or changes to it, and then just memorialize it for the file. So if you think there's no changes to it, then we'll just memorialize the final version. But that version was sent out before the meeting, so just look at your notes.
But it was
see if
kind of presented to him as his review. I mean, unless you have something you feel, I think we had already gone through all that work of aggregating it, put it together. It was our review of him. If he, and then usually like a document like that just gets signed, or there's an opportunity for the employees' comments on the bottom if they disagree or feel something wasn't accurately, represented.
So Joe,
we can bring that
so
back.
Joe, why don't we do this? Bill's 99% sure that we're gonna have no more changes. Why don't you in the next week, give him comments if you wanna add anything to it, to review, and then we'll memorialize it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to just re-push it out there too, maybe even add a signature
I-
line in the comment
yeah.
section, and give you the opportunity to add.
You wanna do that,
to
that'd be
it.
great.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me do
I think
that.
that's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, good.
Approve amended fiscal year 2027
Yeah,
budget goals.
There's two items left, and they're both really the same thing, so I don't know why I put them on there twice. My apologies. Fiscal '27 budget goals,
Right.
guidance, we had talked about it a little bit at the last meeting.
So we asked
You
for a
had made-
couple changes.
And they're in your packet. I
Okay.
made the changes. Let me see if I can find those here.
Excuse me.
The only other thing with the manager goals and evaluation, we did have in his contract, the opportunity to extend a year. I don't know if we want to have that discussion, or if, Joe, you want to have that discussion with us. I don't want to just go, squeeze, run by it.
No, it's a good point. So Joe, when that discussion would be held, how?
Because it's through
Would it be held
September, right? I think so,
one-on-one?
right?
Or would it be
Yeah,
held in-
my first year of my contract has passed, we're in,
Right.
going into the second year. There's a little bit of, because you made the end date for the contract, December, so, you've got some flexibility between now and December to, if you choose to have discussion about extending. So, the agreement, the contract had two options that the select board can exercise. The first one now, and
Yeah.
another one next year.
Yeah.
So between now and December, you can put that on the agenda, discuss it, take a vote.
That
if
would
you
be
so wish.
public meeting, that would be a, what
Yeah.
type of meeting would
No,
that be?
you do that in public.
Okay.
I mean, it's logical to do it after a review. So that's all I'm saying from the time perspective.
So put that on,
We can put that on there.
On the
I'll
meeting.
pull out the contract, dust it off, and we can speak to it,
Okay.
when we put it on the agenda. That helps.
This is the highlighted are things that we addressed based on your comments from the last meeting. But this was the budget goals for FY '26. The FinCom has them. They actually originally had a meeting scheduled for last week. They wound up postponing it, but John said that he's put out a request for comment from his board, and they haven't offered any changes. So he doesn't anticipate them having an issue with just making a vote on this based on your vote, so. And part of the reason this is important now is that we do have a meeting that we pushed off with the Collins Center, which helps us with the GFOA format budget. That meeting's scheduled for this Thursday, so we'd like to be able to present the goals to them as part of that meeting so that they can incorporate them into the GFOA planning.
the only thing we asked for was the last one, Joe, that we wanted to change the word improve.
To
We didn't
enhance?
want to act like it was
Oh,
poor,
right,
I just wanted
optimize, I think we said,
optimize.
right.
Optimize? Is that the only one, I missed that one, I'm sorry.
Like that.
But we can make that motion. So are we okay with approving this before FinCom approves it?
I am, yeah, on a note.
So I would accept the motion to approve let me make sure I read it properly here. Our fiscal year, sorry, I'm gonna say it, you can say so move, but to approve our fiscal year 2027 budget goals with one change to the last goal, changing the word from improve to optimize.
Is that the only note you had on that?
Yeah, and accept the highlighted.
Except the highlighted changes.
So moved.
That was
Or did you want to?
No, I was
I don't want you
looking to see
to.
if I had notes from the other meeting, other than
Okay.
optimize.
So
but-
moved, did I have a second?
Looking for something, so.
So they- Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm good. That was the only change, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Second, yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments on it? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well done, that's a good document.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, and we've got, make sure we went out of order here, but I think we did check everything off.
That's everything.
It is.
All right, so new businesses, we have, more robust discussion between now and next meeting on making sure we get all the data for the items that we've identified, as well as anything else that abutters have felt we haven't addressed in the current negotiations. And then we'll become prepared next week to next meeting to vote up or down on it, just to see where we stand with the following meeting to hopefully get it voted on a month before the town meeting.
In the interest, too, of making sure that we're better communicating, the board has got to have a public hearing for an ascertainment hearing for the renewal of the Verizon cable license. We advertised already for that to happen on the 20th. It'll be advertised again in the paper again this week. And the attorney, Bill August, that works on those matters for us will be present. Quite surprising to us that he had sent, in anticipation of this, he had sent a redline version of the contract, things that he was going to suggest changes on behalf of HW Cam, and Verizon's already sent it back and basically accepted every single one of his changes. So very shortly after we do the ascertainment hearing, probably by the second meeting in November, we'll be having a second meeting with you folks to hopefully accept that finalized contract document. So we'll be getting a new Verizon license, hopefully done. It'll be the quickest one we've done since I've been here, and this will be what's Bill, fourth time we've done one of these now? This is
With Bill.
with Bill,
Yeah.
August, so.
Right.
So that'll be part of the agenda for the next meeting as well.
Anything else on the cell tower, the new cell tower, proposed cell tower?
It was very well covered in the HW News over the last Friday. We
Yeah.
they're looking at having something to the planning board by the end of this month, and they confirmed that in an email last week. So we got to wait and see what their application says, and have the planning board follow its process. But
And then
Fingers crossed.
the offer, when you got back to them and said the offer needed to wait for a vote on town floor, did they pull back, or did they say they would sign a contingent agreement based on it passing at town meeting?
nobody's offered to sign a contingent agreement, but both are interested and are waiting the result of the town meeting vote.
Great, okay. Anything else?
A lot going on.
Do I hear anything?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.